Ever feel like you're lost in a maze when it comes to life? You know, just kind of wandering around hoping you stumble on that path to fulfillment.
It's a pretty common feeling, actually.
Right. So today we're diving into this idea of ethical self-improvement, but with a really, really old guidebook, like centuries old.
Okay, yeah, we're going way back.
It's called Mesillat Yesharim, which is Hebrew for Path of the Just, and it was written by Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who you might know as the Ramchal.
Yeah, the Ramsham. Now, his work, it isn't your typical self-help book. I mean, it delves into this idea of true good and how we can actually align our everyday actions with it.
Okay, true good. I like that, but it
Hungry
feels like
guy.
we have to define that before we can even think about getting there, you know?
100%. I mean, Ramshal, he really provides a framework not just for understanding what true good is, but also, like, how do we measure up? Like, are our actions actually matching up to that standard?
So he's giving us a destination and a way to check if we're even headed in the right direction.
Exactly. And he really emphasizes two main things. First, actually knowing the good that we should be striving for, like what does that even mean? And then second, being really honest with ourselves, and examining, like, are my actions really lining up with that?
So it's like knowing where you want to go and then constantly checking your compass to make sure you're still on course.
Yeah, and the Ramchal, he's a big proponent of self-reflection for this. He even talks about, like, a daily examination of our actions to help us stay on that straight path.
It reminds me of this concept of cheshbon henefesh, which is like this moral inventory, that's talked about in Jewish tradition.
Yeah, totally. And it's not just a Jewish thing either. I mean, it's really for anyone who is looking to, better themselves. It's about building self-awareness and then making choices from that place of awareness.
Right. So it's not about obsessing, right? It's more like a daily check-in, just to course correct. And the Ramchal actually uses this really powerful metaphor. He compares life to navigating a maze.
Oh, I love that metaphor. It's so true, right?
Yeah.
Life is full of twists and turns and, those dead ends that you don't see coming.
Oh, yeah. And like in a maze, it's easy to end up just wandering aimlessly, making the wrong turns, hitting the same wall over and over.
Totally. And the Ramchal, he talks about two big mistakes we make in this maze of life. The first one is, like, not even seeing the obstacles that are right in front of us.
We get so caught up in like our own little world that we're not paying attention.
Exactly. We get so focused on, like, I got to get to this goal that we totally miss the warning signs, or we don't think about the consequences of, taking that path.
It's like walking straight into a wall because you're too busy looking at your phone.
All the time.
We've all been there, right? But the second error he talks about, that one's even trickier, I think. It's this idea of mistaking something bad for something good.
Yeah. That's a tough one. Like, when we try to justify our actions, even when deep down we know they might not be the best choices.
We convince ourselves that, the wrong path is actually the right one. We get stuck in these loops of self-deception. It's like we can be our own worst enemies sometimes.
You really can. It's such a subtle trap to fall into, but the Ramchal, he doesn't leave us totally lost in the maze. He suggests that there are these people who he calls guides who have, like, figured out the maze, and they can help the rest of us find our way.
Okay, so they're like, what, they have a map or something?
Kind of.
Uh-huh.
It's more like they've mastered their impulses, they've attained this, like, ethical clarity, and now they can share that with us.
So like mentors, teachers, anyone whose wisdom we admire, they can be these guides, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they can help us avoid those pitfalls because they've already been down that road. Their experiences, their insights, those are so valuable when we're trying to navigate our own paths.
It's a good reminder that we don't have to figure everything out on our own. So we have these guides, kind of like beacons in the maze, right?
Yeah, like that.
Showing us that ethical clarity, like it's actually possible.
It's not some far-off dream.
Right. But what's so cool is the Ramchal doesn't just say, go find a guide, done. He suggests that we can all become those guides for other people.
Exactly, and that's where his call to action comes in. It's in chapter 3. He says, come, let us calculate the account of the world.
Calculate the account of the world.
Yeah, I know it sounds a little...
intense.
Yeah, but it's like he's urging us to really become active in our own ethical growth, not just, passively learn about it.
So it's like he's saying, let's get practical here,
Totally. And he wants us to, like, consciously weigh the effects our choices have, not just the obvious stuff like, will this help me make more money or whatever, but, like, what's the ethical impact, the spiritual impact? It's a much bigger picture.
So it's not just, will this get me ahead, But is this actually good? Like capital G good?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because our actions, they don't just affect us, right? They have this ripple effect that goes out into the world.
Totally.
Every choice we make, it has the potential to create more harmony or more, like, dissonance. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I get that. But this calculation thing, how are we supposed to actually use that in everyday life? It's not like I'm pulling out a calculator every time I have to make a decision.
Right. Ha, no. It's not meant to be that literal. Think of it more as a shift in perspective, like how we're seeing our choices and the thinking behind them. Are we just reacting to stuff? Or are we, like, really being intentional, considering the bigger picture?
So it starts internally, but then goes outward, like what are the ripple effects of what I'm about to do?
Yes, exactly. Recognize those ripples, then try to make choices that create, good ones, positive ones.
But how do we even begin to do that? With like a million little decisions every day, it feels kind of daunting.
Yeah, it does feel kind of overwhelming. Where do you even start?
Well, the Ramchal, he gives us a starting point. He says we got to get clear on our values.
Okay, yeah.
Like what actually matters to us deep down, What kind of mark do we want to leave on the world? Right, because if we don't know what we stand for, how can we make decisions that line up with that?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the real work, right? Defining those core values that we're going to use, to make all those little decisions.
So it's like we're creating our own little ethical guidebook.
Yes, I like that. Your own personal guidebook. And it's all rooted in that true good that we talked about.
And the Ramchal, he reminds us that we don't have to do this alone, right? Like finding those guides, those mentors.
Yeah, 100%. Surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us, people who embody those values that we're striving for.
People who've kind of walked the walk,
Exactly. And they can offer guidance.
Right.
They can help us see things more clearly.
Because they've already navigated those twists and turns in the maze.
Right, exactly. They've already hit those dead ends, so we don't have to.
It's like this whole idea of self-improvement. It's not just this solo mission, right? We're all in this together. Our actions affect other people.
100%. The Ramchal, he was all about that interconnectedness. He said, as we grow, as we become more ethical, we can actually become those guides for other people.
Oh, wow. I like that. So it's not just about our own journey. It's about helping others find their way, too.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought to sit with. If we can be guides for others, what can we do, like starting today, to light the way for ourselves and the people around us?
It's definitely something to think about. And it reminds us that this whole ethical self-improvement thing, it's not a destination, right? It's a journey.
It really is a lifelong journey.
And as we try to live by our values, as we calculate the account of the world.
I love that.
I know, right? We don't just make our own lives better, we contribute to a better world for everyone. If you're interested in learning more about all of this, definitely check out Mesillat Yesharim. It's a guidebook for life, really, for finding that path of true good.